coming up this hour.
We human beings were designed with a motivation to serve and please our Creator. But sin gets in the way. But what does Job say? Look at the animals and they will teach you. By seeing how our sin damages our relationship with birds and mammals, it opens our eyes to see how sin has damaged our capacity to relate to God and why some people try to pretend God doesn't exist.
Welcome to the program. I believe in the next hour, we are going to be challenged to expand our thinking when it comes to the universe and maybe some of the really big questions about why is it so big and why did God wait to put humans on the universe? All those kind of questions.
You kind of take a look and it's pretty vast.
Yes.
One of the most favorite things I enjoy doing is staring at stars.
I know.
I like looking at stars, the moon, those kinds of things. I do. And just the vastness and the greatness. So this week, I believe, as our thinking grows, and our understanding is in line. The thing that I want to look at is, would you become a worshiper? Yeah. Would you be one that would really praise? And I want you to take note of this, Psalm 96.
Okay.
Just take note, write it down, and take some time to read it a little bit later. But Psalm 96 just begins to declare the greatness of God. But it's wrapped up in song. It says, sing a new song to the Lord. Let the whole earth sing to the Lord. Sing to the Lord, bless His name. Each day proclaim the good news that He saves. And it goes on and it says, honor and majesty surround Him. Strength and beauty are in His sanctuary. It speaks about the greatness of the Lord. He is most worthy of praise. He is to be revered above all gods. And it says this in verse 5, the gods of the nations are merely idols, but the Lord made the heavens. So, let today just be a way that you could learn, gain understanding, but it might draw you into a place of worship and praise of the vastness and the greatness of God. Stay with us. Hugh Ross is our guest, and he'll be back right after this.
Hugh Ross, who has an organization called Reasons to Believe, has written a book called Why the Universe is the Way It Is. And I just want to say it's a fascinating book. He's been with us for 2 programs. This is the 3rd on this subject. And God has really given us opportunities to see His handiwork. Maybe I'm understanding that as never before, Hugh, and I want to thank you for coming to be with us to help enlarge my heart and my mind to see more of God.
My pleasure, entirely.
No, it's really, really wonderful. Now, you have your PhD in, I was going to say astrophysics, but it's astronomy.
Well, either one's fine.
Oh, either one's fine, okay. But you're also a pastor.
Right.
And have been a pastor for what, 20, 30 years?
34 years now.
Oh, my goodness.
It all happened when I was doing my astronomy research at Caltech. And the church that I was attending said, you're an unusual character in that you were raised in a non-Christian environment and came to Christ through reading a Gideon Bible and looking at the science. Could you train our people in how to use this book of nature as a tool to reach out to people who don't have a context of church or Christianity? And so I agreed to take a position on the church staff there, and I've been on that staff now for 34 years, but it was about 22 years ago, they said, we don't want you to be our minister of evangelism and missions anymore. We want you to start a new organization. And so they helped me launch Reasons to Believe. But I'm still part-time at the church as their minister of apologetics.
Okay, well, that's kind of cool. Did you stay at Caltech or in the academic world for some time?
Well, I was there full-time on their staff for 3 years. And then I took this position on the staff. And by the way, it's a church that's close to Caltech. It's a church that's filled with scientists and engineers.
Okay.
So
you're in your environment.
I'm
that
in
really
my
works.
environment, but we also have lots of people who have no background in science at all, so it's a real mixture. And we have all different ethnic backgrounds. But I stayed on at Caltech part-time for another 2 years. Then I kind of told the Caltech astronomy department, look, what I'm doing, because they got me doing some writing, and I started speaking outside of the church. And I said, this is really becoming all-encompassing. So I let my part-time appointment go because I figured that I just wasn't putting in enough time there to justify keeping an office. So,
at Reasons to Believe, which is the organization you work with, and by the way, that's reasons.org if you're looking for a website, and we'll get a connection to our website on that so you can pursue it. But you're still pursuing research in some, or do you do any research yourself? Are you just simply looking at other people's research?
Well,
what happens?
I'm not looking through the telescope anymore, but I still read the scientific literature. In fact, at no point in my career did I ever stop talking about these ideas with my colleagues and reading the scientific literature. And so even though I was on the staff of the church full-time, I was basically full-time keeping up with the sciences.
So the dialogue was going on with scientists?
It was going on, and I was speaking on university campuses throughout this whole time and teaching in classes. So very much engaged in that. And I kind of saw that as a mandate from the Bible, is that we're to study both books. And the thing I noticed is that when I spoke on university campuses about scientific evidence for God, during the Q&A time, often most of the questions had to do with the Bible. And so,
now that's fascinating.
well, a lot of scientists volunteer for our Reasons to Believe organization, but they tend to be people who are like me at Caltech, very focused on their narrow specialty. And I'm saying, as a speaker, you also need to be adept at dealing with the Bible, because that's where a lot of the questions are going to go. And so a lot of our work is training scientists who are Christians to gain some depth in Bible knowledge and theology so that they can integrate this. Because if you start integrating the sciences, people begin to push you to integrate everything. And we need to be ready for that. Likewise, I say to our theologians that volunteer for us, you can't afford to be ignorant about the sciences. Because you start exposing people to these theological issues, they're going to want to ask you questions about the record of nature. Mm-hmm. And we'll help you. Mm-hmm. But you need to be an integrationist. And so we work with both sides, the theologians and the scientists, and try to get them to... That's one of the advantages of our chapters, is a chapter is a place where lay people can get together with trained theologians and trained scientists and people like yourself who are engineers, accountants, lawyers, whatever, all different perspectives. But they begin as a chapter group to begin to integrate because they have people from all these different perspectives. And we encourage them too. Look, if you're going to get the chemists here to speak in this church, the rest of you need to be involved to assist this chemist. Be available to come up on stage to help field questions. Be at the book table and talk to people back there. Don't let this guy stand by himself. He needs help. Because he can't be an expert on everything.
No, so it's really like the church is a body of people.
It's a body of people.
That bring a diversity of expertise, experience, whatever, to the table.
Right, right.
And that's what you're talking about. Getting on with the book.
Right.
And you've written about how many? 40, 50? No, a lot of them.
But it's over a dozen books. So.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You
but
do
I've
like
been doing
writing.
it for a while.
Why the universe is the way it is. We got started on this a couple of days ago. We started here. And I've appreciated hearing some of the reasons why. I just want to hear more.
Sure.
Why the universe is the way it is.
Well, we've only covered 3.
I know.
And we mentioned that there are 12 that the book describes.
Okay.
And the 3 we talked about is that, the universe has a purpose for providing us with a home. And a second purpose is it's designed so that we humans can observe the glory and righteousness of God in creation and actually see the entirety of cosmic creation history and even observe the cosmic creation event. I was talking with your staff during the break. They were blown away that in astronomy, we can directly observe the universe being created by our Creator. We can do that, but it's because of the way the universe was designed that we have that capacity. And also it's been designed to enable the creator to use it as a stage or a theater to bring about a rapid, efficient conquest and removal of evil. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is that conquest and removal of evil is not just for the benefit of humanity. It's also for the benefit of the angels. I mean, we're on the playing field. The angels are up in the stands.
They're observing. This is what the Bible talks about, them observing and seeing what we're doing.
Right. Paul says that we're surrounded by these witnesses. These angels are watching what's happening. And it says the value of being a human being is that we're on the playing field. We get to directly experience the grace of God working within us to bring about this conquest of evil and suffering. The angels watch it, but they're intently watching us to learn about this grace that is taking place experientially within us human beings. And so one of the reasons why the universe has the physics that it does and the dimensions that it does is so it can be instructive to the angels. So it's like it's an optimally designed classroom where the angels outside the classroom can observe and learn. And so we need to appreciate that what we're doing is not just for our benefit, it's for the benefit of the angelic realm. And if you read the book of Revelation carefully, in the new creation, the realm that will replace this universe in which we human beings will dwell with God for all of eternity, there are at least suggestions within Revelation 21 and 22 that God is going to create again. Not just this new creation realm, but create within the realm. And we're going to be rulers, it says, and teachers, instructors over this new creation. And so one of the benefits of the universe being designed the way it is to equip us human beings to be appropriate instructors and magistrates in the new creation, ruling over whatever God's going to create there. And also says we'll be rulers over the angels, and we'll be instructors of the angels. And so part of what we're going through is to prepare us for a future role. And so yeah, it is a tough class. We are going through a lot of suffering. We're being exposed to a lot of evil, but it has the benefit of preparing us for this incredible role that we're going to have in the new creation. And it's bigger than what most human beings consider. The universe is also designed in such a way that it can provide a home not just for human beings, but for a huge variety of life. You know, as I read Psalm 104 and Job 38 and 39, it talks about how God has designed this universe and the earth in particular so that God is able to create this tremendous abundance and diversity of life. And Job kind of gives you a hint why. It says that life instructs us human beings. I think the book of Job, more than any other book in the Bible, describes exactly how it is that this huge diversity of life that God makes, not just physical life, but soulish life, is designed to instruct us and in turn instruct the angels, which means that the universe must be designed in such a way that it's able on one planet to enable all these millions of diverse life forms to live together in harmony and in such a way that it can be instructive to us human beings. And so part of what I talk about why the universe is the way it is how birds and mammals have been designed by God in advance of our creation to please us and serve us. These are these soulish creatures endowed with mind, will, and emotions so that they can serve and please one another in their own species, nurture one another in their own species, but they're also designed to do that with human beings. Powerful argument for creation, because how can any evolutionist explain those characteristics when human beings don't even exist yet? They were designed in advance to do that.
So animals and birds.
Birds and mammals.
And mammals, rather, that serve mankind today.
Well, notice these are the creatures that we can tame. And notice, too, that these creatures are each designed in different ways. The horse very differently than the donkey, for example, to either serve us or please us or to do both. Now, you know, the evolutionists will say the donkey and the horse are physically related. Well, indeed, they're physically very close to one another. On the other hand, if you look at their soulish characteristics, they're very radically different, very different.
So when you look at, so you got to look at more than just the physical.
You got to look at more than just the physical.
You got to look at the soulish element. The way they function, the way they do what they do.
Well, when I talk to scientists who are not Christians, they'll say, no, wait a minute. I don't really see these creatures serving and pleasing humanity. And it says, yeah, you're right, there's something that gets in the way. It's a three-letter word that you see in the Bible, S-I-N. And it's because of the sin of humanity, or to use the secular term, abuse of humanity. The way we abuse these creatures causes them to fear us and to run away from us. But if you take away the abuse factor, you can see clearly their powerful motivation to serve and please us.
They literally want, I mean, so many of them want to.
They want to.
I mean, you get a horse that develops relationship with a person.
Right.
That horse will do anything for that person, or a dog.
Right, right.
I mean, you can go
if
on
they're
and
not
on.
abused.
If they're not abused. No, no,
Right.
if they're treated in a certain way.
They're treated in a certain way, exactly. So, but sin
that's
gets in the way.
fascinating.
But notice too, sin gets in the way of us human beings being able to reach out to the higher being of God Himself. And so just like sin damages the potential of these lower creatures, birds and mammals, to reach out to us and to serve and please us, likewise I'm arguing that we human beings were designed with a motivation to serve and please our Creator. But sin gets in the way. But what does Job say? Look at the animals and they will teach you. By seeing how our sin damages our relationship with birds and mammals, it opens our eyes to see how sin has damaged our capacity to relate to God, and why some people try to pretend God doesn't exist. We run away from God just like the birds and mammals run away from us, but for the same reason. So in that sense, it's critical that our planet Earth and the universe be designed in such a way that it can allow all these diverse creatures to cohabit the planet with us. I mean, alter the physics very slightly and that wouldn't be possible. So that's part of the reason why the universe is designed the way it is, so that we can learn these deep spiritual lessons that are critical to bring about this conquest of evil and suffering, and to do it quickly.
Yeah. Now, I just one little thought that it's interesting that the time comes when God says, when the lion and the lamb will be together, when the adder, the snake will be around a child and
Right.
not hurt the child.
Right.
I mean, as though there's a restoration of relationship the way it originally was intended that comes in the future.
Right. Although we got to be careful, because
Okay.
within the church today, from a theological perspective, I see the danger of what I would term restoration theology. That what God is about is restoring humanity to the conditions we enjoyed in the Garden of Eden. Now, as I read the Bible, I see something radically different. That God's on a mission to deliver us from the shackles of Eden, so that we can enjoy a new
Something
creation.
beyond. Yeah, it's
something far better than
we're not going back
paradise.
to Eden. We're going to heaven. I mean,
We're going exactly.
but there, no, I'm just saying, as though there's a pointing though to where there was something that was good that got lost.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
We definitely lost something.
We have
when
lost
got
something
ejected.
that
Right.
should have been and was in place.
Because in the Garden of Eden, Adam was able to see the way these creatures were designed by God in advance of His creation to serve and please Him. And what did God say? I want you to give an appropriate name to every bird and mammal species here in the Garden of Eden. And so Adam took his time to relate to these creatures, see how they related to him, and give them an appropriate name in that context.
Which refers to a relationship that we don't see today.
We don't see today because of sin, but because there was no sin back then, Adam was able to see and appreciate that. But there are ways we can see pieces of that today. I mean, I tell a story in the book about where I purposely took a vacation in a wilderness part of British Columbia where I know people hadn't been in a long, long time. And I took the vacation all by myself. No one came with me. I basically set up my pup tent and wanted to observe the behavior of the birds and mammals that hadn't had significant contact. And I was able to see something similar to what I think took place in the Garden of Eden. And if you don't abuse these creatures, number one, first of all, they're curious about you. And these animals actually congregate and begin to watch. And then you can see how they want to have contact with you. And some different than others. The goats are there right away.
Well, they're very curious animals.
Well, they are curious animals, but what's amazing is how quickly a wild goat, a wild mountain goat, will come up to you and want human physical contact. I mean, it happens very quickly. They want that.
I had no idea. I did not realize that.
Well, I think there's a reason why goats were the first creatures that humanity domesticated. It's because of the way God designed them to have that powerful motivation.
That's fascinating. So you wanted to experiment to see, in fact, whether that would work, whether there was any indication in that direction.
My parents claim I was born a scientist. I was doing experiments by the time, even before I could talk, I was doing experiments. So
this is an experiment again, absolutely.
Well, yeah, it was an experiment, but I mean, it's a way to kind of test these ideas and discover, you know, God really does have multiple purposes for why he makes the universe the way he does.
Okay, so now I see he made a universe where these animals, and you said they were created and they were already tuned towards being a help.
Right.
And a benefit and in a relationship with humanity.
Well, if you look at wild lions, for example, you can see how powerfully motivated they are to socially relate with one another. But if a lion is all by itself, its number 2 choice is a human being. Lions love to relate to human beings. So, and they won't relate to other creatures, but they'll relate to fellow lions or human beings. And you see that with all these birds and mammals. They're obviously designed to relate to one another.
Sure, sure.
But on another level, they're designed to relate to us. And each species serves us or pleases us in a different way. I mean, to make a broad generalization, the herbivores serve us, the carnivores please us. You know, you don't bring a herbivore into your home as a pet. You'll never housebreak it, for one.
But carnivores you can.
Carnivores you can, and carnivores seem to get great pleasure out of entertaining us, unlike the herbivores. But the herbivores all obviously play a critical role in our economy. You know, they serve us in remarkable ways. In fact, the book of Job describes how God used certain bird and mammal species to quickly launch human civilization. So in one sense, we wouldn't be here where we are today, asking these deep theological questions, if it wasn't for God pre-creating these bird and mammal species. So once we're on the scene, we can very quickly launch the civilization that's necessary for us to dig into these kinds of issues and fulfill our purpose here on Earth.
Sure, having the horse, having the means of conveyance,
Right.
etc.,
Right.
which would not have made life easy
Right.
without.
Or lacking the ostrich, or lacking the hawk, or not having the ox, or the deer, and all the other creatures you see in Job 39. So.
Whoa, okay, one more.
All right. Yeah, there's 12
Right.
different purposes for God making the universe.
I think we got 5 or 6 here now.
Well, no, we got about 8 through
Okay.
in here. But yeah, a lot of it is so that we can enjoy the rewards of the new creation. You know, we human beings really don't appreciate the depth of the meaning of what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 2:9, where he made the comment that no one can imagine or think how wonderful and great the rewards of the new creation will be. Well, it takes preparation and training to receive those rewards. It's kind of like, you know, at Christmas time, I give gifts to my sons. But some of these gifts require a little bit of instruction for them to be able to appreciate the joy that they can get from the gift. Well, it's the same thing with God, is that he realizes that we need some preparation and training before we can fully appreciate the rewards he intends to bless us with in the new creation. And so he gets us ready for that through the physics of the universe. The physics of the universe is there to prepare us and to do it quickly. I mean, that's one of the things I try to emphasize in the book, is that the universe is designed the way it is so that God can bring about this preparation rapidly rather than slowly. You know, again, I use the analogy of college instruction. You know, we kind of break up our instruction to semesters. You know, in a 4-month training period, if it's a good course, will be designed to equip you for a 40-year career. And so the whole idea is, you know, how can we maximize the instruction in such a way that it'll be efficient? Well, what I argue in the book is that the physics of the universe and the dimensions of the universe are such that God is able to equip us very, very quickly. So
It's something we don't tend to appreciate.
We don't tend to appreciate why our lifespans must be the way they are. I mean, you know, a lot of us as we get older and older say, gee, wouldn't it be wonderful to have another 60 years ahead of us? Well, you know, one of the points I make in the book is that let's see what happens if the lifespan is extended. Let's see what happens if it's shortened. And why do some of us get more time and some of us get less time? Well, again, one of the reasons why the universe is designed the way it is such that God can use our lifespan in a way to optimally prepare us for the new creation. And so more time is bad, less time is bad. And that's something I've learned as a professor. If I give my students too much time to write the final exam,
right.
they won't do that well. And if I give them too little time, they won't do that well. There's an optimal time.
You know what? It's very true.
Right. So we need to not complain about the fact that we only got 80 years here upon planet Earth. It really is best, and recognize too that it's kind of like an exam. An exam is not as pleasant an experience as when you're out of the exam room.
I'm handing in my paper.
Well, I remember one time I was sitting in an exam. It was a 3-hour exam, and it was one of these really high-pressure tests where many questions on there. No way you could answer all the questions in 3 hours. And the professor that was proctoring that exam took my paper away when I was only an hour into the test. And he says, you know, this can't be a pleasant experience for you. I've been watching what you've been doing here, been watching all semester. You're going to get the top grade. There's no need for you to stay here any longer. You'll go outside and enjoy yourself. Now, I think there's a lesson in that.
There is. That's a beautiful lesson, actually.
Right.
Goodness, that says more than I expected it to say. It's very powerful. I need to take a break. We'll come back.
Sure.
We're talking to Hugh Ross. The book is called Why the Universe is the Way It Is. We've talked about about 9 or 10 of these whys now. Anyway, we'll come back and we're going to continue. I just find this fascinating. You know, it enlarges my heart to start appreciating some things that I haven't appreciated. I think that's the issue is let's appreciate what God's given us. Let's recognize that to see a bigger picture to help us to understand where we're at today. Thank you, Hugh, for writing the book. Appreciate it. He'll be right back we'll be back with him right after this. We're back with Hugh Ross. I have to admit, I love the title. It's a challenge. It's not how the universe was made, but why it was made. I mean, that's, and I you know, as Christians, it's a wonderful thing, but to realize that you've written the book not just for Christians. People that don't believe in the Bible could pick this up and get challenged by it.
Well, every book I write is really designed for Christians to give to their non-Christian friends. We realize Christians are the ones buying the books.
Right.
But we want them to buy the book not just to read for themselves, but to see it as a tool that they can use to reach out to their non-Christian friends. So our typical customer is somebody who buys 10 books. They keep one, they give 9 away. And that's really what we want to see people do.
Right.
And we purposely designed Why the Universe is the Way It Is to be really lay-friendly. So you'll see a lot of stories in there. In fact, I tell a story towards the end of the book where my wife and I were going into Assiniboine Park in British Columbia. And this is quite a few years ago. Now you helicopter in. But back then we had to hike all the way across Banff to get to the park. It was a 2-day journey just to get to the park border. And when we parked the car, it was pouring rain. And it was pouring rain for 2 entire days. Moreover, we were walking along this trail that was used by horses to bring supplies into the lodge that was in Assiniboine Park. And so it was just filled with horse manure. And of course, if you got pouring rain and horse manure,
you got quite
mosquitoes.
a combo.
And you know, she's a Californian gal, and she said, no one told me that the mosquitoes here are as big as birds. And we're going up the steepest part towards the pass. And this is after 2 days of really hard slogging. And we had 9 days of food in our backs, so we had heavy packs. And so as we were getting close to the pass, she just says, I can't go any further. I've never had so much suffering in all of my life. And she begged me to turn back to the car. She said, I just can't do it. And I said, well, you know, honey, we're only a half mile from the pass. And she said, I just can't do it. I can tell it's getting steeper. The mosquitoes are all over me. I can't, you know, the smell here is horrible. I've had it. And she started crying. So I said, okay, we're heading back. Well, we went back about a quarter of a mile, and she says, just let me rest. So we rested for a bit, and she says, you're right, we need to at least get to the pass and see what it looks like, then we can go back. So I said, all right, take it slowly. Maybe change your mind. That's fine. So we finally got up to the pass. And we got up to the pass. It was like the weather changed. It was pouring rain on the Alberta side and it was sunny on the British Columbia side.
Now that's an anomaly for most of us Canadians.
Well, that often happens in the mountains.
No, I know.
That when
I
you
know.
get
We
to
always think of BC being wet.
Oh, I know.
You,
Okay.
you know, that's what I'm getting at. It's just a joke, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I was raised in Vancouver. I know how wet it can be.
I mean, you grow up with moss growing on your shoes. But anyway, no, I'm kidding.
Sure. But yeah, we got to the pass, and then she looked at the trail past the pass and said, you know, I don't see any horse manure there. And mosquitoes suddenly disappeared. And then she was looking and said, you know, what's all those colors down there? And I said, well, it's wildflowers and berries. She says, you're kidding. And says, I see some little brown things. Her eyesight wasn't as good as mine. So she says, I see these brown, and I says, oh, those are elk. She says, there's hundreds of them. I says, yeah, I know. She says, we're going. We're not going back to the car. And she said to this day, it's one of the most beautiful places we've ever seen on the earth. And she says, and I use that as an analogy. Here we were suffering up towards the pass, slogging through 2 days in pouring rain. But when we got to the pass, it was all worth it. I mean, that's what she said. So everything I suffered, as bad as it was all worth it for the 7 days we got to spend inside the park.
Isn't that beautiful?
Right.
That's beautiful.
And it's, you know, it's a weak analogy, but it kind of makes the point.
No, but it gives us a picture. It
gives a picture, right.
We need pictures.
We do. And so I try to put a lot of pictures in the book, kept all the equations out. And my publisher says it's kind of a page turner. You know, once you start reading it, you really can't stop reading it.
It's a great book, and I want to thank you. It's one that, look, I order it, get it, and as you said, you know, order maybe half a dozen, and then order another dozen after that, and get them to the friends and people that you're not going to be embarrassed. Let me put it this way: you won't be embarrassed giving this book to someone.
Well, I mean, what makes the book work is that we have lots of other books that are at a more technically higher level. And if people want to check out the details, say, of exotic dark matter, we got other books that deal with that, like The Creator and the Cosmos. But I wanted a book to be lay-friendly enough that people would read it and get excited about their purpose in life. Mm-hmm. That's really my goal, is that they not only understand why the universe is the way it is.
Well, then why am I the way I am?
Why am I the way I am?
Yeah.
And how it is that every human being has a different purpose assigned by God for us to live our life, to find that purpose and to live that purpose for God's glory.
Fantastic.
So that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Okay, let's change gears.
Sure.
More than a theory. Now, you've written this book, it says Revealing a Testable Model for Creation.
Right.
Okay, revealing a testable model for creation. Something you can go there and actually check this out. Help me understand. I mean, we're going to spend a couple of days here, so that's good.
Well, again, it's a response to the new atheists, and the new atheists are aggressive. You know, 5-10 years ago, I saw atheist scientists appealing to those of us who believe in God and say, tolerate our belief system. Now they're saying they're aggressive. They're claiming that if you believe in God, you've got a mental virus, to use Richard Dawkins' words, that you're fundamentally evil and you either need to be rid of your beliefs in God or, you know, marginalized in some way. And so we see a very aggressive stance coming from the atheists we haven't seen before. And a lot of it stems from this idea, well, a lot of abuses. I mean, as I look at the atheist scholars I know, a lot of them argue for atheism on the bad things we Christians do. And, you know, they look at the way we argue for God and say those are bad arguments. And they say, well, yeah, but that doesn't prove God doesn't exist. It just proves that we're lousy in defending our
poor
beliefs.
Arguers,
we're poor arguers. That's all it does. But a lot of what I hear is that creationism is not science. Intelligent design is not science.
I've heard that a lot. I'm sure you hear far more than I, but I've certainly heard that, yeah.
When I speak on the university campus, I have to say, look, I've been doing intelligent design before there was an intelligent design movement, but we do it in the context of a model. And so, yeah, you're right. The way intelligent design is publicly presented, it's not science because it can't be tested, it can't be falsified, it's not predictive, it doesn't predict future scientific discoveries, but that's because it's lacking a model. So that's kind of why I brought this book up.
So that's why the testable model that is important. I mean, it's an important element.
That's first base in any scientific enterprise. you can't even begin to do a scientific research program until you've got a model. Now, what I mean by a model is an explanation for why the record of nature looks the way it does.
Yeah, we used to call it a theory.
A theory. Well, a model is actually deeper than a theory.
Okay, deeper than. Okay.
It's better than a theory.
Right, a theory is a suggestion this could work. A model says you put this in place, put the ingredients in, it should come.
Well, a theory is an explanation for one component of the record of nature. What a model tries to do is to explain the record of nature in comprehensive, detailed fashion.
Okay.
And a good model will try to show how its explanation of the record of nature is better than competing models. And it shows how it offers a better explanation for the record of nature, but it also makes predictions of what scientists will discover in their future research. And one of the critiques of creationism is either that its predictions don't come true or there are no predictions. There is no model. And so what we're trying to do here, more than a theory, is show how the past 20 years of our research at Reasons to Believe has come up with a creation explanation, a full-blown model, comprehensive and detailed, that we claim offers a superior explanation to the record of nature than the non-theistic models, the evolutionary models. But we go beyond that and saying, if we're wanting to do our job, we also need to be comparing our Reasons to Believe biblical creation model with alternate models that exist within the Christian spectrum. And so we Christians need to model to the scientific community how we're willing to put our pet theories to the test. And so before we can begin to challenge the evolutionists and the Darwinists, for example,
challenge one another.
We need to challenge one another. And to do it in a way without hostility and dispute. But and so that's what I'm encouraging. What I do in the book is I develop not only our model, but also alternate explanations within the Christian community, and then looking at the different evolutionary explanations, the different atheistic models that exist out there, and deistic models, because most scientists, I think, are deists. They're not atheists, they're not Christians,
yeah, they
but they're
believe in
deists.
God, but he can't be known.
Well, it can't be tested in some specific way. So what I try to do is lay out all these models, but I end the book with a set of predictions and saying, okay, these are predictions that you would get in Model A, Model B, Model C, Model D. These are the predictions you get in our Reasons to Believe model. And I purposely picked predictions that have short-range applicability, a high likelihood of being discovered by scientific researchers within the next 2, 3, or 4 years.
Okay, not something that's going to take 300 years to discover, or 1,000 years or something.
So the appeal of the book is we can wait a few months even and see which model is doing better at its predictions than the other models. And the whole idea is let the best model win. There's no need to get into a hostile dispute.
Yeah, okay.
No, it requires some courage.
Yes, it
I
does.
have to be willing.
You're a risk taker, aren't you?
You've got to take risks. Well, I mean, to be a good theologian or to be a good scientist, you must take risks. You must be willing to be proven wrong in order to have any capacity to show that you're right.
Right. Look, you're not going to change anything in the world if you aren't going to be out there at the edge.
You got to be there at the edge.
You got to push the edge.
But this is actually the second book I've written on the subject. I wrote a book called Creation as Science 2 years ago, where I laid out 90 predictions. Part of what I do in this book is say, okay, we've already got started on this a few years back.
Okay.
Let's see how well the different models did in the predictions I made 2 years ago.
Now, are you using some of the same models again, or did you
models?
You follow the same ones and just
same
say, okay,
models.
Now 2 years later, here's what's taken place.
Let's look at the scorecard and see how we're doing here. And using that scorecard as a way to give us some insights on how we need to structure our future research. I would argue, for example, based on the past 2 years of scientific discoveries, several of the models I described in Creation as Science, we can clearly throw away and then kind of move on to a new cluster of models.
So you're already narrowing the field in a sense.
But hopefully as we narrow the field, we develop more models.
Okay, so new models come out of failures of the past.
Right. And we need to be excited about these failures. So that's kind of what I'm saying to people in the Christian community, to people who are not Christians yet. I'm saying, look, just because your model is a failure doesn't mean you're not contributing a significant role. Often finding out what is not true is the key to discovering what is true.
This is Edison and his light bulb.
exactly.
900 and some odd times it failed, but
Right.
he got it at
Right,
the end.
right. And, you know, try to let go of some of the emotional baggage we have in building these models. I mean, if you think your reputation is at stake, then you're going to tend to be dogmatic in the way you deal with these things. And so, you know...
But it depends how tightly you've established your role in the past. You may have to do some apologizing or some...
Well, this is a little bit different than typical scientific research, because now we're talking about model explanations that are not just pure science.
Okay.
Philosophy is involved.
Yes, it
Theology
is.
is involved.
Yeah, all right.
The way I live my life is involved. So we need to anticipate that there's going to be a lot of emotional attachments to these different models.
Huge.
Which means we need to be a little more circumspect in the way we deal with one another, realizing, look, I can hurt your feelings in this. And,
So what we need to be careful when we do these things is that we don't judge people, judge their character,
Right.
and attack them personally. Because I find that often what happens, if you start finding that you're being challenged, some of your ideas are challenged, we start attacking the other person's
Right.
personhood because we don't like where it's going.
Well, my point is a good model approach will relieve us of these ad hominem type attacks. And that's really what's stopping the resolution of many of these creation evolution controversies, is that people are taking these things very personally. They're attacking one another. There's a lot of mudslinging going on, character assassinations. I argue there's no need for that. Develop your model, make it as detailed as possible, stick your neck out and make predictions, and be willing to make adjustments if your predictions don't come true. And don't gloat too loudly if your predictions do come true, and you don't want to... Well,
that's almost harder sometimes than the other.
Well, that's something that King Solomon taught us. It says, you know, when your enemy fails, or someone who takes a different position fails, don't gloat. And you need to find ways to encourage them to be part of the research enterprise to go on the pathway of truth.
Because you want him to continue on.
Exactly.
You don't want him to feel like a failure.
We need to look at people who take different perspectives as a mission field. Okay? And we need to see ourselves as a mission field. I'm not going to be right on everything. And I need to listen to those people who disagree with me. And one of the things I can tell you about writing more than a theory, I learned more from the atheist skeptics who are attacking me than I did from believers. And they've given me more tools for strengthening my model.
So they actually help you see better.
They do.
Clearer.
Right.
Than some of your Christian friends did.
Right, right. Well, I think there's wisdom in that too.
Sure.
You know, listen to your critics. You know, regardless of their behavior. And sometimes it's difficult to see past the behavior, past the ad hominem attacks.
Well, you know, I look at David there. There's one time when he's exiting town because Absalom's taken over, and there's somebody throwing rocks at him and criticizing him.
Right, right.
And somebody says, "You want us to go and take him out?" And David says, "No, no,
Right.
no. God's allowed him, and you know what? He's serving a purpose."
He's serving a purpose, right.
And so some of my critics are serving a purpose.
Well, a lot of what I see Christians do on this creation evolution spectrum, they attack the non-believers or they ignore them, they withdraw. What I see the Bible commanding us to do is to engage them. We're not to attack, we're not to withdraw, we're to engage. And engaging means you need to be treating them as human beings that God created for a purpose.
Respectfully.
Respectfully, right.
Yeah, there's a comment that I read a book recently, and where someone was dealing with the issue with someone that he was having a struggle with, and he was going to be critical to God and say, "God, you know, I just want to complain about so and so," and he felt God spoke to him and says, "Oh, I'm especially fond of that person."
Right.
And I'm realizing, you know what? My critics, the ones that are critical, maybe if I want to be nasty, now I got to remember, God really loves that person. He may not love God yet, but God loves him desperately.
Not yet. I think that's the key.
Not yet.
If I treat these people with respect, if I engage them, if I enlist their help in trying to help me build a better model and listen to their critiques, then God may use that as an open door for them to come to faith in Christ, and we've seen that many times.
Well, sometimes it opens the door to relationship.
It does.
And surely relationship is the best way
Sure.
to draw people. I mean, because God is a relational God. And if people can relate to us, sometimes they'll see something in us that will actually help them see God in a different perspective than they have before.
Right. And we've even seen Nobel laureates respond. I mean,
Have you? That's got to be so encouraging.
yeah, and there's, a gentleman, Rick Smalley, who won the 1996 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And, he was at Rice University in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
But, I got a letter from one of our colleagues and said, this guy is really aggressive in promoting an atheistic perspective. Well, I found out he was merely poking to find out answers.
He was looking for the answers.
He was looking.
Yeah.
And, he wound up reading our books and giving his life to Christ.
I
So,
love it.
Yeah.
Hugh, there's our goal.
All right.
I mean, to become into truth and to relate to people in a God-like manner, Christ-like. Thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome.
We've talked about why the universe is the way it is, and more than a theory. We'll be talking more about this book, particularly tomorrow. Come back then. Right now, here's more of It's a New Day.
Coming up next time on It's a New Day.
Right, and as the psalmist points out, all the life that God creates is there to serve the human species. So he takes credit for every life form that's there. He's not saying I did it all through evolution. No, I created it. But it's all there for our particular benefit, which tells us that we must be very important in God's eyes.
Turn up the truth in your life. Tune in to It's a New Day.
I'm so grateful that Hugh Ross has been with us this week. We have another 2 programs to go with him. The book is Why the Universe is the Way It Is. It's available from us here at New Day Ministries. I encourage you. It's a nice hardback, good reading. I haven't read it all. Yeah, diagrams, those kinds of things.
Charts.
Willard, you've gone through it.
Dad,
Dan, the cameraman, he's gone through it.
I've got to say something, Dad. You have been loving this, haven't you?
I absolutely love this. I do.
Yes.
It triggers things.
Stimulates
It stimulates me.
Yes.
As I've been thinking about this,
Yes.
you think about it on the side, I want to declare something. You don't have to know everything about something to appreciate it. There's a lot of people say you got to know something to appreciate it. I want to tell you, I can know nothing about the universe. I can lie on as a child I did. I would lie on the ground on the farm where there was no lights out there at night in the summer on the grass and look at the stars and absolutely love looking at the stars, the nebulae, everything. I didn't know what they were called, but I loved looking at them. And God is this way. Whatever level you're at, it doesn't mean you can't totally appreciate, totally love Him, even at that place. The more you get to know Him, the more you can appreciate Him, possibly. But sometimes in our simplicity, the beauty, our hearts being impacted, it happens without knowing everything about it. I want to tell you, somebody that's just gotten to know God can enjoy Him immensely. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have a huge head knowledge to enjoy God. Yes. Just like you don't have to have huge head knowledge to appreciate the universe. Sorry, there's my little spout.
Okay, because you know what, God in Matthew, where does it say? He hides the truth from those who find themselves who see themselves as so wise and so knowledgeable and so knowing those know-it-alls. He hides the truth from those who think they're so smart, and He reveals His secrets to the childlike ones. So it's the secrets of His majesty. Not that we shouldn't always be wanting to know more and understand Him more, but to always have that dependence on Him like a child and be in wonder. You see, they always talk about child's eyes of wonder, and I always want to look at God with eyes of wonder.
I love that.
Wow. Have that curiosity and have that I don't have a word for it, but it's the wonder. I want to be in wonderment of Him.
Yeah, and I think that's what this book will help.
Yes.
It'll help people.
It'll really help you in that way. Thank you for being with us. Again, remember you can share the program with your friends. If today you want to share today's program, just encourage them to go to our website, www.newday.org, and you can stream the program anytime free of charge. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.